right, welcome inside the Wells Fargo Center. It's time for Philadelphia Flyers hockey. I feel like it's been a long time since we've been here. It's Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. We're hanging out at the East Food Hall at the Wells Fargo Center. It's Flyers Coyotes, 2 points on the line. And Brian, I'm going to start here tonight. I got a good place to start. You cannot squander these 2 points. I don't care that they haven't won a game. They're 0-8-1 through 9 games. They've scored the least amount of goals in the league. Their penalty kill is horrific. Their PK is horrific. No excuses. You need 2 points today. How about that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think the Flyers are in that mindset. I talked to Daryl Williams earlier today. We'll hear that in a little bit, but pretty much said that same thing, that it is not about an Arizona team that has none of those things going for it, has 2 goaltenders you've never heard of, has 15 players you've never heard of. It is not about any of that. It is about going out there and getting the job done and getting 2 points. They have been very dangerous in their last 2 games. They've almost beaten Washington. They've almost beaten Carolina. So they have the ability to do it. And you got to know 2 things, that there's pride on the line just in general from the fact that they haven't won a game. And then there's a little extra for this group to play for, I'm sure, tonight in the name of Shane Gostisbehere and trying to get a win against his former team. So this is not a coast game. It really is a very dangerous game because, like you said, everybody's been getting points against this team. Flyers need to not be the team that doesn't. And that's just the name of the game.
Ghost has not been here as an opposition since the 2014. Was it 2013 or 2014?
14, yep.
Frozen Four member Union squad. All in all, in his 7 years in Philadelphia, 381 games, 60 goals, 159 assists, 219 points, and a guy that electrified this crowd, especially in those first couple of years. I mean, he had in his 4th year, I guess technically his 3rd full year, 65 points as an NHL defenseman. Those are high-end defenseman numbers.
He came out of college and started setting records in Flyers history in terms of points by rookies, points by defensemen, points by rookie defensemen. All of it came together very, very well for him. There's a nice article in the Inquirer today where Sam Carchidi was talking about what Ed Snyder thought about Gostisbehere's debut. That was right at the end of his battle with cancer, and he was kind of upset he wasn't going to be able to see his career. Unfortunately for everybody involved, it just didn't quite take off the way that it did. He had some injuries. The knees kind of nagged at him. He got him fixed. He felt better than ever, and then COVID hit. It was just an unfortunate, I think, way that everything developed for the Flyers and for Shane Gostisbehere. So, they just elected that to make it a change of scenery for him and free up the cap space to use on somebody else. And, all the best to Shane on every other game except this one and the next one they play each other. We certainly hope he does well out there. And, unfortunately for him, they're in a situation where they're not having a good start. But, it's definitely, I don't think, any bad blood between the two. You just wish it had gone a better way.
Yeah, I remember Ed Snyder talking about Shane after Union had that great Frozen Four, and he was having trouble with his name. He said, I don't know what. He's got to be here. That's the name. Shane got to be here. And ultimately he got 2 games in that year.
My earliest memory of him at a Flyers development camp was, when these kids come to development camp, they are kids. They are 18, 19 years old. A lot of them are kind of intimidated by the fact that they're in an NHL camp talking to NHL media when we bring them upstairs to do it. And, they get kind of stiff, and they just, they're talk about how happy they are to be here and how they just want to soak everything in or whatever. Shane Gostisbehere came up into the media level at Voorhees, walked into the media room and plopped down on the couch.
Owned it.
And he held court there for about 25 minutes. It was really remarkable to see at the time. It's just the kind of confidence that he brought, and really he still brings to his game.
A little bit of swagger.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw it firsthand here in that NCAA championship. I believe he was a +7 in that game. He was setting all kinds of NCAA records. The first period, I feel like he had 15 shot attempts. There was a lot of power plays for Union in that first period. He was, of course, quarterbacking the power play and just shooting the daylights out of the place.
He could bomb it.
Yeah, and then, again, the injuries happened. I feel like NHL coaching staff started to pre-scout him a little bit, take away some of his opportunities. Maybe didn't adjust as well to that as he could have. But he's got the veteran experience now and has a potential to be a dangerous piece for Arizona.
Arizona coming into this game 32nd in goals for, 32nd in goals against. They've given up the most, they've scored the least. When it comes to shooting percentage, 31st, second lowest shooting percentage in the league. Power play percentage, 31%, or 31st in the league, clicking at 8%. Penalty kill, 58.6%. Let me just give you some perspective on that. The Flyers are 20th.
That's a good face-off percentage.
Yeah, the Flyers are 20th in the NHL in penalty kill percentage at 80%. They're 32nd at 58.6, and they're also the most penalized team in the NHL. And Brian, one of the things going into this game is that Alain Vigneault has made some changes on the power play. Ivan Provorov is going to be quarterbacking the power play top unit, PP1, and now also Cam Atkinson has been elevated to that role, and he's earned it.
He certainly has. He has been the scoring punch that the Flyers have sorely needed here in the last few years. That's why, in my opinion, that trade was one of those trades that benefits both teams. Jake Voracek had gotten to the point where he probably needed to change the scenery here. I don't know much about Cam Atkinson's time in Columbus, but maybe that happened there too. I really don't know. But, the fact that both players are thriving in their new roles with their new teams kind of tells you that was a good deal for both sides. But to your point on the penalty kill, I mean, this is a situation now where the Flyers use their speed as much as they can, try to force this Arizona team into some penalties. It's a very young team, very, I think inexperienced might be a word you'd use at the NHL level for a lot of these guys. Try to take advantage of that, force some penalties, and then, capitalize on that new power play.
And the other part of that, though, is the Flyers lead the NHL at 5.33 minutes of power play time for the opposition.
Right.
They've taken the most per game penalty minutes in the league. 6 penalties in the game against Calgary that wrapped up that road trip. We know about the 7 in that game against the Florida Panthers where they lost. They got to stay out of the box as well.
That's something they got to do across the board. That's not just tonight.
Yeah.
That is that is a unsustainable thing to do if you want to be a successful team. And the main reason is not just because you give up power play goals. Even if you don't give up power play goals, if you are a team that goes 6 for 7 on the penalty kill like the Flyers did during the season opening homestand, it still wears you down. It gets your players out of their rhythm. And, instead of spending your energy generating offense, you got guys spending their energy killing penalties. And then you, again, like I said, players lose their rhythm. They don't play for lengthy periods of time in a certain period if they're not on the penalty kill. So it's just a good practice to stay out of the box as much as you can. I mean, obviously there's going to be some penalties that you have to take. There's going to be penalties that happen out of circumstance, but you want to limit those, as much as possible and try to play the even strength game.
You want to wait. Here's a way I can represent that fact of what you just talked about. Sean Couturier is averaging over 20 minutes of ice time per game. Why is that? Because they're on the PK too much. He's averaging 20 minutes and 19 seconds. Conversely, Giroux, who plays on the same offensive line as him, is averaging 17. He's actually killed some penalty too.
Right.
And then you look at a guy like Derek Brassard, averaging second-line center, averaging 14 minutes and 5 seconds of ice time. Guys like James Van Riemsdyk don't kill penalties. So if you're taking back-to-back penalties, and many of them, then you're in a situation where guys just aren't getting their regular shift.
Yeah. You use certain guys too much because, if you're Couturier and you're out
those
there
are
killing
hard
penalties.
minutes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so then now your top line center's out of his rotation. And then if you're a guy like James Van Riemsdyk, who oftentimes might even be serving a penalty if there's one to be served for whatever reason, then you get out of your rhythm and you go, 5 minutes with maybe one shift, and maybe your timing's off, whatever. But then, sometimes they got to roll the lines a little bit to get fresh people on the ice because some guys are killing penalties and some are not. It's just not a good situation to be in.
All right, coming up, we're going to hear from Flyers new assistant coach, Daryl Williams. You had a chance to speak with him this morning at the morning skate, so we'll have Daryl Williams. And also, we're coming up, I'm going to take a quick look at this month of November and what lies ahead. I mean, the winning percentage of their opponents is above 650. And it is hellacious November schedule, making tonight's game even more important. So we'll take a look at that. Hear from Daryl Williams coming up. It's the pregame show live from the East Food Hall at the Wells Fargo Center before Flyers Coyotes. Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus, right here on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. We're back live at the East Food Hall, Wells Fargo Center. Flyers Coyotes coming up at 7. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. They are sitting by, getting anticipation of this game tonight. Back here, only home game of the week at the Wells Fargo Center. Flyers going to head back out on the road Thursday to Pittsburgh. First meeting with the Pens. Crosby's back for that. And also the Washington Capitals coming up on Saturday down in D.C. Now, the schedule this month after tonight, Pittsburgh and Washington on the road. Back here next Wednesday against Toronto. At Carolina, at Dallas. Then at home against Calgary, who beat the Flyers 4-0 to end that road trip. Then Tampa Bay at home, Boston at home. On the road in Tampa and Florida for the Florida two-step. Then Carolina again here at the Wells Fargo Center, New Jersey, and the Islanders. Talk about a grueling month.
We were doing, I guess, a post-game during the road trip. And you and I were briefly touching on what was ahead. And I looked at the schedule that I have, which is not like the calendar version. It's a list of each game. And I just looked at it, and I'm scanning November, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize it until I sat down and looked at it. And I guess a lot of it's because there's some teams in there in those rushes that we didn't expect to be there.
Yeah.
There's some teams that, and honestly, I shouldn't be surprised because a lot of people didn't expect the Flyers to be 4-1-2 out of the gate either. But I knew that they were going to be a better team than last year. But there's some other teams that are in the same boat. So yeah, it is a grueling month of November, and with everything else going on in the division right now, I think some teams are starting to cool off, but everybody got off to a good start. I think the lowest points percentage in the division right now is 650 or better or something like that. So it's just a nuts situation. The Flyers just have to take care of everything they can take care of and get as many points as they can.
Yeah, back in 2019, November, they had 16 games that month, 14 this November, 16 in 2019. And they only lost 2 games in regulation that month. They had a tremendous month in what was the second month of the Alain Vigneault era here in Philadelphia. Now, earlier today, right, you had a chance to catch up with Flyers assistant coach Daryl Williams. And here's what Daryl Williams had to say talking about this game tonight and what's coming up.
Welcome back to tonight's Flyers pregame show. Flyers and the Arizona Coyotes tonight here at the Wells Fargo Center, joined on the pregame show by Flyers assistant coach Daryl Williams. Daryl, I guess to start, let's just sum up the road trip. Obviously, been nice to have all the points, but what would you guys take away from the trip? Some of the good things and some of the things to work on.
Well, you know what? We went out with the goals everybody does, to go out and try to win all 3 games, but we took them one at a time. And, getting the first win in Edmonton was obviously very big. They were playing very well on a roll, and it was a real good test. And we went in and we responded, and I thought we played a very good game. Got better as the game went on, and our third period was great. So we came out with the win, went into Vancouver, and I think we played another solid game, and got to Calgary, and it wasn't one of our better games. So it's one of those games that you look at some of the things you did maybe not correctly, and learn from it, and apply it to what your team is going to do going forward. And we're just getting ready for tonight.
As far as the wins go, I think one of the things that stood out to me was they were the 2 different wins. One was kind of a run and gun, and then the other one was a defensive battle. And it seems optimistic anyway that this team can win games like that, as the situation arises, whether they, need to, if it's a back-to-back or anything along those lines.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's one thing that we've been, I think since the beginning of the year, the whole team is trying to buy into that. Sometimes it is going to be open. And like I said, I thought in that third period against Edmonton, we really did shut things down and kind of manage the puck a lot better in the third. And then going into Vancouver, it was the same type of game. So it's something that the focus has been on there, not just from the coaches, from the players also. And yes, it is good to see. And you're going to need that going forward as games get tighter.
I know it's a little beyond what you guys can control, but right now in this division, just seems everybody's getting almost all the points they possibly can. How does that change your job, if anything, when you're trying to make sure the team stays in pace in the Metro, or is there just not much you can do about it?
Yeah, it's not really. We can't control that. That's not much we can do. So you hear it all the time. The approach is just basically get ready for one game at a time, and if you can peck away and win the 2 out of 3s, or maybe get on a roll, win 3 or 4 in a row, and then lose one. That's kind of what you need to keep pace. Like you said, teams are getting points, so we need to keep doing that. But I think the best way for us to do it is just focus on tonight's game, make sure we're not looking ahead to Pittsburgh, just focus on Arizona, prepare for them, and give our team the best opportunity to go out and win.
Obviously, this team doesn't have the greatest record, but every team in this league is dangerous. What's Arizona bring to the table tonight that you guys have to deal with?
You know what? They're very, if you look at the last 2 games, they played Carolina and Washington, and both games went down to the last 5 minutes of the game. So it's only a 1-goal game, 1-goal spread. So it's a game that we can't go out and expect to be a run and gun, and just because they haven't won, think we're going to put up points. We got to be ready to battle right down to the end of the game, and that's what the last couple teams had to do to get points against these guys. They're playing hard. They're very well structured, very very defensive minded. So they're not going to give us a lot. We're going to have to work hard to generate, and we just got to work as hard on the other side of the puck and make sure we keep them off the scoreboard.
All right, Daryl, thanks for doing this. Best of luck tonight.
Okay, thank you.
There's Flyers assistant coach Daryl Williams in advance of this game tonight. Flyers and Coyotes. When it all comes down to it, and I just boil it down to the simplest form. It's 2 points in the standings. I just gave you the schedule of what's coming up. You got to come away with 2 points tonight. It's an inferior opponent, and it doesn't matter that they don't have a win in the win column. It doesn't matter that Shane Gostisbehere is coming back. You got to get the 2 points.
I think you have to look at the game in a vacuum. You don't care what the last 9 games have been like for Arizona. You don't care about what the team's got coming up. You don't care about what's going on in the rest of the Metro standings. You just got to go out tonight and get the job done. And if the Flyers take that mindset, I think they'll be successful. They were very sharp today in the morning skate, looked good. Sometimes you can see in a morning skate if a team's off a little bit. They didn't look off today. So I'm optimistic that that's going to translate over tonight, and that this is not going to be a problem for them. But it has been in the past. I think Arizona came in here a few years back, like at 0-10-1 or something, and got their first win here. So they don't want a repeat of that.
And we remember last year too that the Buffalo losing streak ended against the Flyers.
Right.
We don't need that kind of pain. We don't need everything that comes with that kind of pain, social media craziness and all that. And it is. It's to me, it's an important game because of what lies ahead, how tight things are. It's early in the season. You got to be one of those teams like they were in the second half of 2019-20 before the pause that doesn't let one loss turn into two.
And no team in this league is going to play like that all season. Eventually, they're going to figure it out. None of the teams that have records like this are as bad as they look record-wise.
Don't be so sure.
The penalty kill percentage that you read earlier is a little astonishing, but there's not a lot of wiggle room between these teams in this league in terms of skill anymore, and so eventually things are going to start to click for the Arizona Coyotes. Flyers just hope it starts tomorrow.
Yep, and we're inching closer and closer to face-off. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates at the top of the hour, bringing the countdown to face-off, but we'll be returned right after this with the pregame show. It's Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus at the Wells Fargo Center. Flyers Coyotes tonight. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Back live at the Wells Fargo Center. Flyers and Coyotes tonight, and 2 points on the line. Brian, one of the things we just kind of alluded to him is Sean Couturier and the start that he is off to this year. And the notion that, I've heard this quite a bit over the last couple of years, that the Flyers don't have a superstar, right? You have guys like Connor McDavid, you have guys like Nikita Kucherov. Even people will point to a guy like Matthew Barzal, an electric player. But Sean Couturier, despite the fact that he may not be the most electric player, certainly in my eyes, is a superstar in this league. He's as good as it gets in all zones. He is a point-per-game defensive form, and he kills penalties, best face-off percentage. I mean, he does a little of everything really well. He may not be flashy, but he's still a star.
The thing about Couturier is that you don't necessarily notice him until he's not there. And when he's not there, everything falls apart. And so that in itself makes him kind of underappreciated. I think folks are starting now in the last 4 years to realize, what the Flyers have in Sean Couturier. You got to remember that for the first 3 or 4 years of his career, he was a third liner. And then he essentially went to the coaching staff and said, I want a bigger role. And they gave him that bigger role. And did he ever respond? He became a completely different player, it seems like, overnight. And now here we are. It doesn't feel like it's been this long, but tonight is his 700th career game.
Fourth most in Flyers history.
It's nuts. And this is a kid that made the team out of camp as an 18-year-old in 2011 when he was drafted. Never played in the American Hockey League. And, he's missed games here and there, but he has never missed this huge amount of time. Been a consistent player in the lineup whenever he's healthy. And now he's got 700 games under his belt before his 8-year extension starts.
That's crazy.
It just is kind of, it's exactly right. It's weird when you think about it. So, I think that Sean Couturier, in my mind, when I think of other Flyers that compare him to, one of the guys that comes to my mind is Dave Poulin, which, I guess makes sense because they both won Selkies. But, a guy that, was definitely one of the keystones to that team in the 80s, but not doing so in any kind of flashy way, not putting up tons of points, anything like that. Just going out there night in, night out, getting the job done. And if he's not there, you know it.
I'm looking at this game tonight in our further minute and change here before we wrap up and hand things over to Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. My key to the game tonight is simple. Stay out of the box. And you almost can't lose.
Yeah, I think that
can give them life.
For me, a key is another good, solid start. Flyers have had solid starts in all but one, maybe two of their games. You do not want to give this Arizona team any sort of blood in the water. You want to go out there from the very first puck drop, be all over them, be relentless, and take charge early.
Yeah, don't give a struggling team anything to grab onto to feel good about. You drown them early and early and often. And we'll see how this plays out. All right, that's going to put a wrap on the pregame show. We'll be back postgame and, of course, intermissions as well. Stay tuned, though. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, they've got the countdown to face off and all the first period action of Flyers Coyotes back here at the Wells Fargo Center coming up. You've been listening to the Flyers pregame show on the BetRivers.com Flyers broadcast network. See you, stream. We'll be back.